Investigative Reporters and Editors (IRE) is a non-profit organization, established in 1975, that aims to improve the quality of investigative reporting. It creates a forum in which journalists all around the world can help each other by sharing story ideas, news gathering techniques, and news sources. The mission of IRE is to foster excellence in investigative journalism as a fundamental of a free society.
This is a panel on prisons, jails, and other corrections issues. My name is Ted Guest. I'm the head of criminal justice journalists. A lot of you know that for the last dozen years or so, we've done criminal justice panels here at IRE, and we appreciate your support. We have an interesting panel today because some of these panels we like to get outside experts, so it's not only journalists talking to journalists, which is very useful. So take a look at that.
Welcome to CNAC News. I'm Tey Yee Jie. A 15-year-old inmate in Florida jail was tortured to death by the prison guard for only 4 months. Let's see the details of this news.
Apparently, the 4 guards just wanted to torture him, not kill him. It was just an accident that he died during the torture.
I was a police reporter for a very long time, a crime reporter here in Philadelphia at the Philadelphia Daily News, and subsequently went to Miami and started covering police corruption, which Florida has quite a number of stories about police officers who get in trouble. So I had plenty of stories on my plate at the time that this prison story happened. We had received a number of letters from an inmate at Dade Correctional down in the Everglades, and he told this horrendous story about an inmate who he said was murdered at the prison. And he had been writing letters for probably a year to the governor, to the Department of Corrections, to police departments, to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and no one seemed to pay any attention. At the time, I was doing a huge project about racial profiling, and so my editor actually went down to the prison to interview this inmate, and it's a pretty horrific story about he was a 50-year-old inmate who was mentally ill named Darren Rainey. He was on a drug possession charge. He was only in prison for about 4 months. He was very mentally ill. He had schizophrenia. And what we soon found out is that the mental ward that he was in at the prison, the guards that were there had been torturing inmates there for quite a number of years. And it had become increasingly more violent to the point that inmates had died there. And what they did was they, in order to control the behavior of some of the inmates who were the most mentally ill, they would lock them in a shower that they had specifically rigged to turn up to 180 degrees, and they would leave them in there screaming.
I wrote a lot of letters to the correction department and police department, but both of them ignore my letters. I can hear the screams every day while they shower. Other inmates tells me, this is because the guard used 200 degrees of water for shower. I'm scared. What if next time is me?
The country already provides them a place to live. What else do they want? So what? In an IRE panel discussion, Ted Guest, of criminal justice journalist, said that prison stories haven't been cast into the public limelight too much, and media practitioners also don't know much about it. Some journalists even don't know the difference between prison and jail, as Guest noted. Different state prison has different authorities of running the prison. Each county has a prison board to oversee the county jail. Therefore, journalists should understand the reality of state prison and cannot generalize them too much. According to a 2018 report from the Bureau of Justice Statistics, nearly 2.2 million adults were held in America's prisons and jails at the end of 2016. According to Atlantic, nowhere in the world incarcerated as much as the US does, and the total number of inmates here takes up 25% of the whole world. But after decades of explosive growth, there are signs that the country is turning its back on mass incarceration, according to a CNN report. The prison population decreased in 2016 for the third straight year. The correction systems have reached a consensus that they need to lock fewer people up, as huge increase has done nothing to enhance public safety. To achieve the goodwill, risk assessment turns up. Risk assessment tools are used to predict the likelihood of reoffending. Aileen Sullivan of the Associated Press explained that risk assessment will calculate the rate to see who should be treated, what kind of treatment should be given, or who should be released out of prison.
And we really view the use of incarceration, or what it should be, as a tool that should be used with precision, and we have not used it historically with precision. So when you talk about the risk assessment, I really think that's an attempt generally to try to find a tool to give people, folks, criminal justice professionals, prosecutors, elected officials, some confidence that as they reduce the population, crime is not going to explode.
According to Julie K. Brown, there are some concerns since there are different kinds of risk assessment tools for different prison states. Not to mention as well, these risk assessments may not pass a person's common sense. Another concern is that some tools focus on too much criminal history, which may cause some prisoners are being punished for problems that are out of their control. For example, like how near does the prisoner live in the drug neighborhood?
So I think that the best thing to do is start asking in your states, is this going on? How's it being used? Can I see the questions? Can I see the answers? How are they assessed? How did this factor into your decision making? And start really shining the light on how this is working. And they're supposed to do evaluations every couple of years, ask to see the evaluations, and just start writing the stories about that. I mean, people can get really great breaks because of these risk assessments. They can be let out and have a second chance at life that they wouldn't have otherwise had, and they can also be kept unfairly because somebody who's just like them on paper reoffended. So it's a really big deal, and it's not going away.
Can you just say for a moment what is the rationale for using risk assessments? I think it is that without them, we're relying totally on either judges or corrections officials or the text of a state law. And while those three things may have their merits, of course, that it isn't scientific enough. But is that the
yeah?
rationale?
I mean, that's
and
one
what's
of the
wrong
issues.
With that rationale?
That's one of the issues, that you don't have a parole officer or a judge say, "I know people like you. I've worked in this field for years. You typically reoffend. I know that you need to, stay incarcerated longer." It's to make it more fair, basically, and it's. I don't think that we know yet whether it is.
The mental health issue of inmates is also one of the serious problems. In Pennsylvania, 8% of inmates have serious mental health problems, but that number could have doubled outside of Pennsylvania. Correction Office has not supplanted the mental health system, since the criminal justice system cannot be a primary provider of the mental health services. Even though its main purpose is to respond to the improper behavior, especially juveniles, the elderly, and all population in general. But the officers are accused of overusing isolation and segregation in order to respond to the mental illness prisoners. It will make the situation worse and worse. Now, let's see what happened in the class.
Hey, Miss, I was wondering how the journalists cover the prison stories.
Yeah, like how they get the sources.
Yeah.
Most of the states is only reporting the basic number of prisoners. They are not giving details about the issues of jails, according to Eileen Sullivan, an investigative reporter. You can get the sources from the website such as the Bureau of Justice website. In this website, you will know U.S. prisoners policy and sentencing.
What about Office of Justice Program OJP website?
Yes, you may go to the OJP website to get the circulation and the cases related to prisoners. You can also search www.casemed.com to get the audit about medical cases or from a state or country health department or private medical provider. Furthermore, you can check the prison federal case law, which is about prisons sue officials for their bad behavior. Do take note that every state has its own prisoners policies. It is hard to get the sources sometimes.
And also how to make people care about the prisoners' issues.
Well, according to Eileen Sullivan, when the issues is coming out, people start to care and forgive. If you want to make people care about their stories, you have to rethink it and combine the story with human interest elements. You can consider telling their family story to people, so people will know different perspectives to prisoners. For example, they may think of what happens if that prisoner is my brother.
So, Miss, is there any restriction for journalists to interview prisoners?
Yes, definitely. According to the California Department of Correction and Rehabilitation, media representatives can interview inmates or terrorists randomly, and random or specific person face-to-face interview with staff. Such interviews may be restricted by time, place, duration, and the number of people in the media group. Random interviews of inmates involved in a specific activity or program or encountered while covering in facility activities or events. It shall be limited to the time, areas, and segments of the facility population designated by the institution head. Inmates may not participate in specific person face-to-face interviews. No inmate, parole, or staff shall be interviewed against their will. Use of cameras or recording devices inside an institution or on state property requires prior approval. A CDC Form 146 Inmate Declaration to News Media Contact shall be completed whenever an inmate is the subject of the still, motion picture, or other recording intended for use by a television or radio station or newspaper, magazine, or even other publication.
And what are the obstacles that journalists may encounter?
Although the US has liberal records law, the officials from certain departments can say no. Some officials make things difficult to get records. They want you to provide the specific name of the document. If not, it will not turn out. It will make the process to get the records harder. Therefore, journalists should figure out and track down the inmates which are in the particular mental health prisoners and use letters to contact them, but sometimes it didn't get through since prison officials screen the mails. And journalists need to be creative. For example, use a royal letterhead instead of your publication letterhead.